I'm from the Bay Area in California, and I'm currently a first year at Trinity studying classics as part of the dual BA program with Columbia. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my degree and give you some advice on how to apply. Okay, so there are two main sections of the degree because it's divided between your time at Trinity and Columbia. The studies at Trinity are a lot broader, and here you'll be a student of CLAHA, which stands for Classical Language, Ancient History, and Archaeology. So there's a lot to cover there. Within CLAHA, there are two pathways that they'll have you choose between: dual language and single language. Basically, you can choose whether you want to study Greek, Latin, or both. Your class placements for these languages are determined by your Leaving Cert scores, or AP scores if you're an American like me. Now, admittedly, I don't really know how the Leaving Cert works, so I don't know what kind of score you need to skip elementary Latin or Greek. But I can tell you that I scored a 4 on the AP Latin exam, and that was enough to get me into Latin in context. I'm currently pursuing the dual language pathway, so my classes this semester are Latin in context, elementary Greek, Greek and Roman art and architecture, and Introduction to Greek and Roman history. To be honest, it's not really that much work compared to what I've seen about the other degrees, but you can also select additional modules at the beginning of the year too, which I'd recommend considering the light workload. The single language pathway has a couple additional classes, like Sources and Methods for Ancient Roman, or Ancient History and Archaeology, Greek and Roman Mythology and Religion, and there's also one on Ancient Literature. In the second year, you do have to make some more choices about what you want to study more specifically. This is when you have to start thinking about what you want to do at Columbia. There are 4 available Columbia majors corresponding to CLAHA: Ancient Studies, Archaeology, Classics, and Classical Studies. So, for example, if you're like me and you chose the dual language pathway at Trinity in your first year, you have the option to switch in your second year to the single language pathway with either of the ones you studied in the first year, and that opens up the possibility of majoring in archaeology at Columbia. I found all of this stuff a bit confusing too, but the classics staff I've talked to so far have been really helpful, even though their diagrams are really bad, like they're really hard to follow. Basically, in year 2, they want you to focus on what interests you the most. The Columbia majors narrow down those interests even further. So like with Ancient Studies, you look at ancient Mediterranean culture overall and focus on one either Mediterranean or Mesopotamian culture in particular. Archaeology is fairly self-explanatory. You focus on and learn to interpret physical remains from ancient cultures. Classics and Classical Studies are both focused on Greece and Rome, but Classics is more concerned with the language and literature side of things, whereas Classical Studies has like a wider scope with courses, but only lets you take one of the 2 languages between Greek and Latin. That's a lot of information, but we're almost done with this section, so bear with me. During the summer between your last year at Trinity and your first year at Columbia, they want you to do one additional thing to like prepare for the transition. They want you to do either an archaeological fieldwork program, an internship, or a summer language course. And in your final year at Columbia, they have you do a capstone project, which is basically a 12,000 word dissertation on any topic relevant to the classical world. As for specific admission requirements, like I mentioned before, my 4 on the AP Latin exam was enough to get me into Latin in context and the program. But supposedly you need a Leaving Certificate H4 or above in a language other than English, or anything equivalent to that. I'm a bit unclear on what that means specifically for baseline scores in other countries, because it's hard to there are very few places that compare Leaving Cert scores to AP scores. It's kind of confusing. But they said that Latin students should be able to translate unadapted prose and poetry with some help from dictionaries and grammars for authors around the difficulty level of Virgil and Catullus. I think what they're really looking for in the application process is excitement and involvement. Of course, also with a good blend of test scores and extracurriculars. For my resume, I had a lot of things which showcased how much time and effort I put into Latin and the community around that, like my involvement with my classics club at school, national Latin exams I've taken, and state classical conventions uh, throughout the years. Although I do think that the thing that probably helped me stand out the most was this college level Latin course that I took between my sophomore and junior years of high school. It was a pretty crazy experience, especially because it took place in Rome, so we all got to hear about the history and see the places we were reading about firsthand. I know for me it really made the history come alive, and I feel like I forged a connection with some of the Latin texts. As for the application essays, I mostly talked about my experience with Latin and how it helped me figure out the kind of person I want to be. It probably didn't hurt that I threw in a couple references to Trinity clubs that I was interested in, and that I went on Google Earth tours of like the campus to like get invested. I do think one of the best things you can do is get invested, because if you're really interested in the program and what you want to study, I think they can tell. I know personally I got to the point where I would like fall asleep and see myself on campus in my dreams. It was kind of trippy. It was just like going about classes normally. I got pretty into it. The coronavirus hasn't been helping much in living out those dreams, but that's my problem. I think we also have like a special opportunity as classics majors to talk about why we want to study classics. Like, there are so many other fields that make more money, so why does classics appeal to you specifically? I know that all of us have had to defend against the why are you taking Latin or ancient Greek, it's a dead language, why are you studying classics, you're gonna end up homeless and alone living in a box on the side of the street. So like, now's your time to defend against those arguments and use them as fuel for your essays. What are you gonna do with this degree? Do you want to be a teacher, a historian, archaeologist, lawyer, doctor, whatever you want to do? Just talk about it. I feel like most people going into classics are really passionate because we've had to defend our interests so many times. So use that passion. Make them feel how much you love classics, and you'll be fine. If you're offered the chance to interview, first of all, congratulations. That means you've made it past the first round of admissions. So, here's what you should expect from the interview. I did mine over Zoom because of the physical distance, so I probably wasn't as intimidated as some of the people who did it in person. There were only two people who interviewed me. Lindsay Seifert, representing Columbia. You'll get to know her pretty well throughout the application process, and Christine Morris, representing Classics at Trinity. Honestly, I don't remember too many of the specific questions, but I'll quickly just list the ones that I do remember. There was, if you could add one subject to the core curriculum, what would it be and why? And then, of course, tell me about yourself. And one of the questions they asked me about classics specifically was, what is your favorite building in Rome? Or it was like, what building in Rome do you think best represents the city, like architecturally? It was something like that. But that was probably because I've been talking about my Latin course in Rome. What I do remember generally from the interview is that I talked a lot about Latin, like to the point where they started adding other than Latin in the questions. I took that as a bad sign at the time, but I'm here now, so maybe they actually liked me just going off and showing how passionate I was. It honestly wasn't too bad. I was really scared beforehand and had a lot of mock interviews with my friends to practice, but I don't think I really needed to do that. Just review some of your favorite moments from high school related to classics. For me, those were the summer program and annual state conventions. Get hyped up about what you love and get excited. Mention some of the things you're looking forward to doing at Trinity and Columbia. Like, I mentioned that I was interested in learning more about archaeology and participating in this summer fieldwork opportunity they have. Look at the website, find things that interest you, maybe talk to some current students. Just get really passionate and really invested. Those are my two main points of advice. I chose the dual BA because, well, aside from having 2 degrees from internationally ranked universities, I was excited to explore new places, like not one, but 2 like major cities in the world. This year's been a bit of an asterisk in terms of exploring Dublin, but I have been enjoying living as an international student. I mean, all the immigration stuff isn't too much fun, but it's cool to have the independence and do like adult stuff. It feels like a good trial run for post-college life. Also, I'm loving the Dublin architecture, even if it hurts my heart a little bit to see a classical style building being used as a Starbucks. On the academic side, I've seen some of my professors give presentations to colleagues over Zoom on what they're currently researching, which I find awesome. There's just so many opportunities I'm looking forward to taking advantage of here. Also, socially, the dual BA kids are all pretty close, and it's a nice community to be a part of. The application process can seem daunting, but it's worth it. There are admission resources linked in the description, and don't be afraid to comment if you have any questions. Also, subscribe if you want to be a part of the dual BA community. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the coming years.